Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Open Mic Discussions. Tonight, I'm honored to have another great guest. Hello, Zeke. How are you doing tonight?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for coming on my podcast. Now, I followed Zeke on his Instagram for some time. You have a lot of content that you put out there. You've been speaking up for quite some time on many different issues. Now, I think you're maybe on, I've seen like on TikTok as well and some other platforms, or which platforms are you on?
I'm on TikTok as Cop with Attitude. Unfortunately, Zeke Arkham was taken. Well,
Oh, was it
I,
really?
yeah, it was actually taken by me. It was my original account, and I got suspended by TikTok. I guess I dropped a few too many truth bombs. And
Uh,
I'm also on Instagram under Zeke Arkham, ZeekArkham, one word. I'm also on Twitter. That's actually where I talk my trash the most. Same handle, ZeekArkham.
Perfect. Well, and you can send those links to me afterwards. And what I'll do is I'll include them in the video as well in the description so people can go and join your different platforms. And actually, I didn't know you were on Twitter. I got back on fairly recently. I had been off for many years. So, can you tell everybody, first of all, kind of like what is your background?
Well, my background, born and raised in New York City. Nowadays, it's referred to as the People's Republic of New York, just because they pass laws and have statutes there that I can't explain. You can only write that off as we had a Marxist mayor for 8 years, and that's basically what it was. We're home to the infamous AOC, both Bill De Blasio and AOC, who are both socialists. So that's why we call it the People's Republic of New York. I did 17 years in law enforcement,
Oh, wow.
and I was raised as more liberal. Went to college, became even more of a liberal. Because you're young, impressionable, you want to impress your professors. I kind of red pilled myself after Obama started talking trash about cops.
Mm.
And I figured, if he's wrong on this, what else is he wrong about? I started doing my own research, and I slowly but surely red pilled myself. The more I did my own research, and the more I looked into facts for myself, and the more I stopped allowing the mainstream media to dictate facts to me and dictate to me how I should and shouldn't be feeling, the more conservative I got. So right around when Trump's inauguration came around, I was a bona fide conservative. I actually was not a Trump fan. I was more of a Ben Carson, Ted Cruz kind of guy because I liked what they had to say. A lot of my fact finding went into getting quotes from them. But after Trump was elected and I saw the good he did for the country, it basically just cemented how I felt. So I just started reading more. I got heavily into Thomas Sowell, and
Mm.
I'm still heavy into Thomas Sowell. I think I've read just about everything he's put out. He just makes so much sense to me. It makes maybe because he went to high school with my grandfather, who is
Oh,
is
wow.
someone who I look up to so much, and his words simply make sense, and they can't be debunked because it's the truth. I speak to my grandfather a lot. He's a very educated man. He's the type of person who always thinks before he speaks, and he actually, without knowing it, further cemented my red pill status because everything he says echoes Thomas Sowell. So I like to say the truth is simple. The truth doesn't have to be explained. The truth doesn't have to be rationalized. The truth doesn't have to come under too much scrutiny because it's the truth. It's lies that have to come under so much scrutiny, and it's lies that have to be explained. So that's something that Thomas Sowell speaks about all the time, and that's something that my granddad has said over and over again. So yeah, I'm a dyed in the wool conservative nowadays.
That's amazing and awesome that you brought up Thomas Sowell. I listen to him all the time as well. Um, so okay, for me, I want to ask you this question because I've been more conservative my whole life. However, I did grow up with, I'm in Texas. I grew up with Democrats that seemed nice. They didn't seem so extreme like what we're seeing now. What has been your experience? Because you grew up, like you said, more Democrat, right? More left leaning. What was your experience as far as like in college, the things that you're seeing? Were you being encouraged to ask questions? And what was, I know you brought up Obama as well. What were some of the things that kind of caught your attention that didn't add up?
I went to a very liberal college here in New York City, and I had two professors I can think of just off the top of my head who were bona fide activists. They were bona fide liberal activists, hated the gun lobby, hated more Republican candidates, hated conservatism, equated it to white supremacy, equated it to oppression of black folks. You know, thinking back just even in school, the worst teacher I ever had growing up in school was my seventh grade teacher, who was a bona fide liberal activist. You know,
Wow.
she used to remind us all the time that we were black, you know, as if, you know, she's teaching to a school, a class that was 100% black, but she
Hmm.
would remind us like just about every day that we were black and we lived in the five boroughs of New York City, and she was a white woman who lived on Long Island, and you know she was wrapped up in privilege, and she had this and she had that, and black folks and white folks had these much differences between each other. You know, she reminds us every day. And it was the same sort of indoctrination in college, where the professors would basically just remind us every day that we were oppressed and remind us every day that we had to fight back against the system. You know, these two professors I had, it's funny because I don't even remember what subjects they taught, but I remember their activism, and I remember, you know, just their blatant indoctrination. It wasn't even like they were really trying to teach a lesson. It was all about indoctrination. Excuse me. Now I'm thinking about it, I had three professors that were bona fide hardcore activists, and one of them even I had to write a paper on how much the religious right was so evil. That was actually the topic. I had to write a paper on it, and at the time, I agreed. At the time, I heavily agreed. You know, like I said, you know, you're 18 to 21 years old. You're heavily influenced. You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to find your identity post high school, and here come these professors who are basically putting their views into your head and saying if you don't agree with their views, they you know you're going to get a horrible grade. So of course every kid wants that you know anywhere from a 3.0 to a 4.0 average. So they're going to write what the professor tells them to write, and you find your way to put your own spin on it, your own voice on it. So I had these professors who wanted me to write these papers and have these point of views and read the books they read and read the books that they wrote. That's another scam I figured out pretty quickly in college. The professors will write a book and then tell you you have to go buy it in order to pass their class. So you know you have these professors out there who are indoctrinating you. You know they're bona fide indoctrinating you. They're not trying to hide it, and you start to almost agree with it, and that then you're surrounded by students who are more liberal in nature. You know, you don't go to the young Republican club, because that's all suburban white students.
Hmm.
So growing up, I thought, you know, they can't possibly understand what I'm going through. We can't have anything in common.
Hmm.
Sure enough, you know, come to find out, I had more in common probably with them than I had with the circle of friends I hung out with. And you do slowly start to get indoctrinated. I tell There's a story I love telling. I haven't spoken about it too much on social media, but I love telling it whenever I go on podcasts. My great granddad was a Southern gentleman from North Carolina, and I don't even think he had a high school education. I don't know his level of education, but he was a very soft spoken, very simple speaking sort of man. And he worked at GMC at a factory and retired. And I remember I went to go visit him with my family. I had my whole family there, and I figured I'm holding court. And I start telling him about this injustice and that injustice and how this is unfair, and this happens because I'm black, and we need to fight back against this. And I'm thinking I'm schooling him, because here I am, a college educated man at this point, and here was this guy who I don't even think had a high school education. And he put his hand on my hand, and I think he was about 80 years old at the time. I was 21 years old. He put his hand on my hand to stop me, and he said, always be the last person in the room to call something racist, because if that word's overused, it loses its power.
Mhm.
But if you are the last person to call something racist, it will mean so much more when you actually do say it. And then he changed the subject, just started speaking about something else. Kind of, shut me up right there. And I got home, and I went into my room, and of course, I'm in my feelings, and I'm like, how is he going to tell me about what's right? How is he? He don't even, did he graduate from high school? How is he going to tell me? And a voice in the back of my head went, "Hey, dummy, this guy lived in 1920s North Carolina when the Klan was something to like really be feared." He used to tell me stories when I was younger about how when he was walking to school sometimes he would see people that he knew being in the aftermath of being lynched.
Mm.
If you hadn't seen someone for a couple of days, you just assumed the Klan got them and they were lynched. And sure enough, you'd be walking to school and you would see them, and then you'd have to go and alert some of the older people in your town, and they will go and take them down and give them a proper burial. But this is stuff that he saw growing up. So it was kind of like, you're gonna lecture him about racism. He saw stuff that you only read about or see in
Mhm.
fictitious, in on TV. So that was kind of, sort of like my moment, I guess, when I started to really figure stuff out for myself and really look around and say, okay, well, maybe stuff that I learned in college is wrong.
Forgive me for asking, actually, is your grandfather still alive?
My great granddad, no, he passed
Oh, it's
away.
great-granddad. Ah, okay.
Yeah, he passed away. My grandfather's still alive. He's 90 years old, and he's the only one that doesn't know he's 90
Wow,
years old.
90 years old.
Yeah, but my great granddad passed away in the early 2000s.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, it sounds like a great man, that he, gave you a lot of good information, and forced you to kind of think and ask questions. I guess I would ask you, as far as those teachers that you said that were trying to influence you, to their perspective, their ideology, what do you think, was their intention behind what they were doing? Do you think, for example, was it for political power, as far as activism is concerned, and how it's infiltrated the school system, but it's been like that for quite some time. How old are you, Zeke?
I'll be 45 next month.
45. Okay, yeah, I'm 41. So, obviously it's been quite some time since you had those teachers, right? So this has been going on for some time. What do you think was their intention behind what they were doing?
They were definitely trying to influence the next generation to vote the way they wanted them to vote. A good buddy of mine, Delano Squires, says, um, "We're in a war. We're in a battle." And elementary schools, right? Actually, the public school system right now is a training ground, is a boot camp for children. If you look around, even at my daughter's school, and we live in a fairly conservative part of New York, but even at my daughter's school, they had them all coloring flags for Ukraine, and you have teachers there who had their own political points of view, and sort of slowly under the table kind of put their political views into children. You see on TikTok every day some new teacher, and these are the ones that are bold enough to come forward. There are teachers, I'm sure, out there who are hiding, but they're still putting their political views out there just as boldly in their classrooms. But you see on TikTok every day, they're trying to train and indoctrinate these children. What they're doing is they're trying to influence the next generation. They're trying to influence past Gen Z. They're trying to influence past after Gen Z. They want to shut down any sort of conservative values. And if you look at what conservative values are all about, they're all about a smaller government. They're all about keeping Christ and God in your life. They're all about just moral values, as far as you want to leave children alone. You want people to keep more of their money. These are all conservative values, and they want to shut that down. So that what they're going to do is they're going to influence the next generation. There was an article that came out about I want to say about 3 years ago in my area,
Hmm.
where a high school teacher was actually suspended because he was on his personal Facebook page talking about how cops are evil and cops should be killed. And the parents rallied against him,
Oh,
and
good.
but the children of those parents rallied against their own parents in support of the teacher. So you have these teachers who are in a very influential position where you have teenagers, preteens, college kids who are trying to find their identity. They're trying to find their way in life. Their brains are still maturing, and you have these people who are just bombarding them with these messages. AOC bombarding them with these messages. Oh, all we want to do is give you free college tuition. No, it's not free. As taxpayers, we're going to be paying for it. It's not free, but it sounds wonderful. We're going to cancel your student loans. You're going to get to go to college for free. You can get this liberal arts degree, which is worthless, and not have to pay for it. So, it would a conservative would go back. Okay, well, how about we talk to the colleges and find out why they're charging so much money? Where's all this money going towards? Do we have to pay the university president millions of dollars to sit there and basically do nothing? Why are we paying this much to indoctrinate children? Why are you getting a degree that you can't do a thing with? So we need to be firing back at them and asking these questions, bringing it back to the source. But my frustration with conservatives is and always has been, they're not fighters. They want to just sit back and go, I'm just going to pray for it. Or I'll identify a problem on Instagram. I'll show a video and show my response to it. And there's at least 10 comments in my comment section. Why you even talk about this? Just ignore it. That's how we're going to make this go away. We're just going to ignore it. Yeah, well, we've been ignoring it. And this is where the problem is. Now we have drag queens that want to give lap dances to our children and have our children. We spoke. I have an 8-year-old daughter. They want to give my 8-year-old daughter a lap dance. They want my 8-year-old daughter to put dollar bills down their G-strings. This is where we've gotten now, as far as quote unquote ignoring it, or I'm just going to pray on it. This is where we've gotten so far. The Bible says you can pray about it, but you also need to stand up and do some action. So this is why I do what I do on social media. This is why I talk about different things, because conservatives, people who pray, who are Christians, who read the Bible, who want a better future for our children, for our country, for our families, just for our next door neighbors. We need to get up and we need to be a vocal majority. It's the vocal minority who's running everything now, but we need to be a vocal majority and we need to start taking things back.
I completely agree, and I'm glad you brought that up. I've spoken to my wife about this many, many times. As a conservative, it drives me nuts. I don't understand why conservatives are so silent. And my wife always says, you hear the catchphrase, the silent majority, almost as if there's some kind of power in that. And I don't think there is. If you see evil, it's like they say, evil prevails when good men fail to act. And so it's great to see you. Like I said, with your channel, you've been speaking up for quite some time. And we need more men of conviction like yourself to encourage other men to speak up, because this isn't going away unless people stand their ground. Let me ask you, so as far as your content, what you've been speaking out about, what was kind of the turning point for you? What was something initially that you were like, okay, this is it, I have to speak up, so other people can kind of see where you're coming from as well?
Well, initially, I started speaking up because I saw there was so much misinformation or just outright lies about what law enforcement does and what they don't do. I originally joined law enforcement because I was always raised to respect authority, whether it was from a teacher, even from a babysitter, but especially from a police officer. If I'm driving, don't get in the cop's face. Don't throw my phone in the cop's face and start threatening them and saying, "Oh, I'm going to record this. I'm getting your shield number, and I'm going to blast you all over here." I was taught never to do that, because now you're creating a hostile situation. In no way, shape, or form am I endorsing cops overstepping their boundaries or being abusive with their powers. I've also spoken out against that as well. But if the cop is doing their job and you are directly creating a hostile environment for that cop, it's almost like you get what you deserve from
Yeah.
that situation. So I saw so much misinformation and disinformation going on out there. I became a cop just sort of to help out in my community, but I also just wanted to see what policing was all about. And I found out that cops are people too. Cops have families. Cops have hopes, dreams, aspirations. Cops have goals that they want to accomplish for after they retire. Cops have the same concerns about their children, about their families, everyone else. So I saw all this misinformation out there. I saw outright lies out there, especially as concerning cops and traffic encounters with black men and things like that. So I said, let me go out there and start putting the truth out. And I honestly never thought I would have the platform that I am. I'm blessed by God to be able to get on this platform and talk and speak and just put the truth out there. And whether people want to listen to it or not, I'm putting it out there. My grandmother used to say, always speak the truth, whether it fills the room or empties it. And so far, it's been filling the room. There have been a couple times where it's emptied the room, but I'm able to look at myself in the mirror, and I've been able to sleep well at night. Just be able to say, I told the truth. Now, have I been wrong a couple times? Has my version of the truth sort of I haven't had all the facts? Sure, but I've called myself out and said, you know what, I was wrong about this. I retract this, and here's what it is. And people have respected that, and they've been able to say to me, you know what, that actually makes you more authentic because you're able to call yourself out, and you're not clinging to a lie. And it's just like I said, God gave me this platform to be able to speak out and to be able to talk about where this country is going, to be able to talk about law enforcement, which I believe is a noble and blessed profession. I've been able to put my views out there, talk about being a family man, just endorse, a better way of life. I call out videos and people go, well, why are you always speaking negatively about black folks? I'm not always speaking negatively about black folk, but if there's behavior out there that needs to be called out, it needs to be condemned, and needs to be spoken about so it can be addressed, I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this platform, and I'm so thankful and grateful for it, and I'm going to continue to speak out as much as I can.
Well, hey, thank you for everything you do, and thank you for your service as a police officer. I want to ask you, you're in New York, right? Um, Something at the very beginning when they were pushing this whole defund the police movement. I used to have a lot of liberal friends, and I would tell them, I was like, you're putting people in grave danger. If you remove the police out of the cities, especially like in densely populated areas where crime is more rampant, you're putting people in grave danger. Has been, some of the things you've seen going on in New York as far as like the beginning of the defund the police movement, and then also like as far as crime increasing? What have you seen?
Well, if you notice, all the people who are screaming for defund the police, like Corey Bush, like AOC, like Ayanna Presley, and the rest of the squad, they all have security details around them.
Hmm.
Corey Bush spent upwards of six figures on her security detail. Meanwhile, she's trying to take police out of her neighborhoods, out of neighborhoods she represents, in under the guise of, oh, we don't need them. They're just going to oppress people anyway. We don't need them. She will pay, as Thomas Sowell says, the worst type of person to make any type of decision about your life are the people who will face no backlash if they're wrong. If Corey Bush pulls every cop out of the neighborhood she represents and crime spikes 1,000%, she's fine.
Hmm.
The worst thing she'll have to face is, okay, she'll have to apologize a couple times in the next election cycle, but more than likely she'll be reelected. Which shame on the people in her district if they're going to reelect her. Uh, you know, AOC, as much as she crows about defund the police and lessen the number of cops out there, or let's get rid of prisons because prisoners somehow magically, if they're all released, they'll go back to they'll go back to their neighborhoods and they won't commit crimes, which makes absolutely no logical sense. But this is what something that she's going on and on about. If she's wrong, she pays no penalty for being wrong. They're not going to come to her doorstep because she's got security. She can call Congress and get a detail in front of her home. The average person walking up and down the street who actually lives in these neighborhoods will pay the ultimate penalty for her being wrong. Mm-hmm. And this is why I told everybody defund the police was such a horrible idea, and this is why it was never fully instituted any place, because they couldn't afford to do it. Everywhere they started talking about defund the police, crime spiked, and they had to wind up paying more for police overtime. You know, when you talk to people in these neighborhoods, they want cops on their blocks. They want cops in front of their buildings. They want cops in front of their stores. I have tons of friends in the NYPD, and they all say, it's getting back to that time where certain store owners want cops in their stores, because at least they know if a cop is in my store, I'm not going to get robbed. They want cops hanging out outside. They want cops at least on the corner. So that's why I keep saying the vocal majority needs to step up and get themselves involved. We're no longer at a place where you can just say, well, I'm just going to pray on it, and that's all you do, or I'm just going to ignore it, or God wins in the end. Yes, God does win in the end, but right now you need to stand up and fight. So I tell people all the time, get involved, get your voice out there. Don't be afraid to get your voice out there. If you're praying on it and you're putting your faith in God, and you're believing that you're telling the truth, and you're believing that you are doing the right thing, and you actually are telling the truth, and you actually are doing the right thing, you're covered. So get out there and speak and say what you have to say, because we cannot allow the vocal minority continue to perverse the truth, or put ideas out there like defund the police, which is going to impact the people who need the police the most.
That is a powerful message, and I hope for everyone listening that you will take that advice and start speaking up. Zeke, I want to thank you for coming on. I know as we talked, you have something to do after this, so I won't take up too much of your time, but I want to thank you again for coming on. I greatly appreciate it. I'd love to have you back in the future, discuss more ideas. Thank you for everything you do, for speaking up. God bless, and you have a great night, okay?
Thank you. You as well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely, Zeke. Take care, bro.
Take care.